Hey guys, what's going on? This video we're going to go over what we've been doing here at Lotus and basically our new studio addition. Stay tuned. Alright guys, so here it is. We've got 50 2x4 by 16 going up to the third floor of our new Lotus warehouse. We basically had to build a wall dividing up the room. So one side is essentially going to be the production facility, and the other side is going to be a photography studio. So kind of went all out with the photography studio. Didn't really mean to, kind of just happened. But, the end result is pretty awesome. So I'm really glad we did go through with it. Here you can see it just framing a wall. And that really just consists of 2x4, essentially just in squares and rectangles, spread 16 inches apart from each other, and then you just add the sheetrock on top of it. And we really had to get to the very top, and my ceilings are pretty big. I mean, they're 20 feet high, but the cyclorama definitely isn't that large. Here you see us putting a door. The other difficult part is keeping everything up to code. So my dad has been helping us out with this whole process, and he knows kind of the whole code, what's up to code and what's not. So he was definitely a major part of not only framing and just getting involved with building the studio space and dividing the area, but just overall lending a hand and kind of teaching me and how to do some of this stuff, because this really isn't my expertise. But it was fun to do it with him, and we kind of had to MacGyver certain things like this ladder, and we just put like a 2x4. Well, it's much bigger, but you get the idea. All right, so basically we just kept sheetrocking and putting plaster, and first time I ever plastered, so I mean this was all definitely a learning experience. My dad is kind of a beast, so you kind of see him just flying there, and obviously I got involved here and there, but for the most part, I was really standing back and kind of learning how to do it. But I do go into deep plastering, especially for the cyclorama, and you'll see that later on in the video. So what you see us doing here is a process called shimming. So my floors are so bad, they're just so uneven. So doing something called shimming is essentially just putting like pieces of wood underneath and to level out the floor. And these wood pieces are like different sizes, like 1/8, 1/16, maybe a 1/4 inch, and you kind of just use the pieces to kind of level out the floor. Here you can see us putting the cyclorama, like building the curves already. So I cut these out with the CNC machine, and then we just easily added them onto the space. So they have to be 2 feet apart from each other, so each curve is 2 feet apart. So we're gonna add some wood pieces in between, and here we're really just kind of just dry fitting and seeing how the overall space is gonna look. All right, yeah, we just keep basically building it up. So this is gonna go up to 14 or 16 feet high. I don't remember. I think it's 14 feet, but all I know, it's pretty good size for a cyclorama. And if you think about somebody standing in front of a cyc wall, like no one's really that tall. So anything over, I'd say 10 feet is pretty good. And here I got my buddy Jono helping out. We are essentially putting what's called the ribs into the cyclorama. So adding these ribs is really for when we put down a layer of 1/8 MDF. It will curve on that, and if somebody were to step on it, it kind of protects it from their foot going through. But disclaimer, do not step on the curves of a cyclorama. Now, after I've done this, I would definitely use like a PVC, like 1/8 PVC underneath, and then put 1/8 MDF over it. But and then I'd also put like some concrete or something, maybe not concrete, but like some sand. So if somebody does step on it, their foot won't go through. It'll help like build stability. So because people kind of just walk aimlessly, you do really get lost. When you get stuck on like this white space, you kind of lose your footing. But here's like us putting the 1/8 MDF onto the curves, and this is my best friend Nick, who would come every so often to help us, and wherever we needed a hand. So I mean, this part was definitely the easiest, But then when we hit that corner, it became extremely difficult. But yeah, I mean, still a lot of fun. It just took forever to kind of get this one corner done. And when I say this one corner, I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about there. I'm not exaggerating when I tell you guys that we literally tried to get that corner done for an entire day, like just at one spot. And then basically the process from here is pretty much compound tape or joint tape and kind of just making everything look like one cohesive piece. And then just a ton of plastering. I mean, like, way too much plaster. I wish it was like an easier way to do this. I can understand why, like, if you were to hire somebody to do this, why it's so expensive, because it's extremely time consuming. You can see it's kind of, hitting it with plaster already. And then at one point, I was just like, forget it, because I've seen a ton of these videos on YouTube, and I just started slamming plaster on there. And I think I maybe went through like 5 buckets of these. I think they're 15 pounds of plaster. But I mean, you get a lot out of them, and they're not that expensive. I think like one of those things are maybe like $12 or something. So at one point, I mean, right here, I have like a machine that kind of, so instead of doing this by hand, I just went to Home Depot and I rented a machine to kind of, get a majority of it done. And I also did the wall with that machine. But there are parts where you have to do it by hand. So I was definitely being more cautious in certain areas and trying to get as much done with the machine, since I only rented it for, I think, like 4 or 6 hours. So we moved pretty quick, though. And then, another part of it was to paint this blue. That's like the style of the building. So when they give you a unit, it comes in blue and white. And definitely am not, like, this royal blue is definitely not my style. So definitely had to change that up and kind of brighten up this room. I don't think anybody who's going to rent out a photography space anyway would want, a blue wall to begin with, unless it was like very artistic. But in this case, like, it's kind of a burden to the eye. So we just kind of primered it and got ready to really change up the entire vibe of the room. Here you see me doing a whole geometric style wall, and that's kind of because this wall was like pretty awkward. So I really wanted to like bring it out of that awkwardness. So put the tape, painted it gray like the other walls, and then we started doing a layout of like what squares or what triangles or geometric shapes are going to be a what color. And I really wanted to get like purple involved in there because of Lotus, and that's just, the color of our brand. So I essentially picked 3 different grays, the one white of primer that was already there, and then we got the purple in there. And then there's little like purple and gold accents throughout the entire photography space, so it adds a nice little hint to everything. And then we started slamming down laminate floors and really getting the space to look like one cohesive, photography space. I think once we lay down this laminate floor, you can kind of see like the whole vibe of this room changing, which was really nice to see. I mean, once we started like looking back at like what we've done already, you can see, the space really coming together. All right, so this is kind of like how everything turned out to be. And we immediately started primering this wall and just priming everything. And I read online, like, use as much primer as you can to kind of get it as, close to white as possible. And then start slamming it with the ultra white. Or is it ultra flat white? Or something like that from Home Depot. All right, so I think me and my buddy Nick did this whole painting in like a day probably. I mean, the priming and the ultra white, it's pretty, it dries pretty quick, and the recoat time is pretty well. So I do know that if you are going to buy like, this white or, build a cyclorama, you need to always have the same white on hand, because you do have to paint it pretty often, especially like when you step on it. Obviously it's going to get dirty. So it's good to have or buy the same white. So don't get like a specific white, just get whatever's on shelf, because you will have to go back and buy a ton more. Here I am. It was a really hot day, so don't mind me, but this is me putting that final coat and after I put this final coat, it really came together. And here are some of the photos that Jono did. Came out really nice. I mean, the spot right now is on Peerspace, so it's getting pretty good traction. The people have a lot of really good things to say. We had a day where we brought some friends in, and we kind of just wanted to showcase how the space would look and can be used. And rented out some equipment. Here's Jono doing some great work. We really just have fun with it, and we're always glad to like host it. And a lot of our desks or our Lotus furniture is going to be shot in this studio, which is kind of the main reason why we built it. But just overall, I mean, it was a really fun experience, and if anybody has any questions, just let us know.